Hello, everyone. Today, I'd like to share some meal planning tips because I often get questions from people about, how do you decide what you're going to make during the week? Or do you cook every day? Or, what's your plan? How do you decide what to do? So, I'm going to share today a few tips that are from my book, The Plan A Diet, and also a few tips that I personally do that maybe you might want to try as well. So let's start before we begin by saying that if you are new to plant-based eating, you don't have to find 100 recipes at once. Just find 6 or 8 recipes that you like. I realize it can be overwhelming at the start, if you're new to plant-based eating. Just find several that you like. You probably already have several meals that are almost plant-based, and just with a few tweaks, you could make them plant-based. Try that and then add in a new recipe every week or so. Experiment with something new as you feel led to do so. And pretty soon you'll have a big repertoire of meals that are your go tos. And you may not like every recipe you try. That's okay. Don't let it derail you. That's very normal. I remember flushing a whole pot of soup down the toilet because I think it was a beet soup or something, and we just did not like it at all. So there's going to be things that you don't like. Remember your goals. This is really important. If are you striving for weight loss? Are you trying to reverse a chronic condition like high cholesterol or type 2 diabetes or something inflammatory? Then for those reasons, you would want to choose lower fat recipes. Um, it's best to limit or avoid those high fat plant foods like nuts and nut butters and seeds and avocados, coconut and olives, and sometimes even soy foods. Those higher fat foods can be used as a condiment sometimes, like throw a few walnuts on your oatmeal or have some avocado chunks in your burrito. Use them very sparingly, depending on what your goals are. And also, if you're not familiar with an ingredient at first, I remember the first time I saw, like things like miso or seitan, I had no idea what that was. So either search the web or ask me, ask me at sidnotter@sidnotter.com, and I will be happy to tell you what something is and where you could find it. So before we begin, if you are going to be eating salads, you could make those tossed salads ahead of time, load them up with all your favorite veggies, and make enough for 3 or 4 days, or you could make enough for the entire week if you plan to eat salad every day. I mean, salads, depending on what's in there, sometimes they don't last more than 3 or 4 days. But that is one tip that you could do for your meal planning is to make your salads ahead of time and prep them. Another thing would be along that line to make your own simple oil-free dressings ahead of time. I personally like a balsamic dressing. There's a recipe called 3-2-1. It's simply 3 parts vinegar, 2 parts mustard, and 1 part sweetener. So I will use 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, 1 tablespoon of date syrup, and I'll toss in some Italian seasoning and just whisk that up for a really good simple dressing. Or you could purchase fruit-based balsamic vinegars or maybe a brand from the store that is, compliant with our label reading requirements. If you just do a Google search for oil-free vegan dressings, you're going to get a ton of information on that too. Then you could plan to use frozen veggies as a side dish, if you're trying to cut down on your kitchen time. Now there's a concern, with microwaving in plastic. I just did a blog about that. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be using steamers as much anymore. I might just buy the frozen veggies and cook them on the stove or microwave them in a glass container. Frozen is better than canned typically. And then plan for the entire week to save time and money. So, what is your typical routine right now? Are you cooking every day? Are you doing batch cooking, which we're going to talk about soon? Do you plan every meal? And this, what I'm about to present to you, you do not have to plan every single meal down to the nth degree. Like on Tuesday, we're having this meal with this side dish. I mean, you don't have to go to that extreme, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. When I was writing my book, I learned a term. It's called, are you a plotter or a pantser? So plotters will plan things out. They plot things out for the entire week in this case. A pantser flies by the seat of their pants and makes things, when it's 5 o'clock, they decide what they're going to cook. Or maybe you're a combination of the two. Many of us are that. So I just thought that was a funny term. All right, let's start with creating a meal plan for the next 7 days. Now, in my book, this is the start. In fact, this is free on my website. There's a 21-day meal plan on my website at sidnotter.com. I'll share that with you at the end. But at the start of that meal plan are some of the tips here that I'm going to be sharing with you. So I encourage you to go download that 21-day meal plan, or if you have my book, it's in the book as well. So some of the things to do are to pick 4 to 6 main meals for the week, a salad or simple side dishes, plan for that, have fruit on hand. And if you're going to make healthy desserts like ice cream, be sure you're buying frozen fruit. Make sure you have your breakfast items on hand if you eat oats every day, or if you are eating pancakes that you could put in the toaster, or you're making a batch of waffles that you could put in the toaster during the week. Consider that too. And also, are you going to be needing snacks during the week, like maybe hummus and tortilla chips? Or fruit, again, is a great snack. So you have to think about not just your dinner, but the whole day's worth of food that you're going to have, including your breakfast, your snacks, and so on. And also, what is your typical routine for breakfast? I like to have an Ezekiel cinnamon raisin muffin that we toast, and I spread that with my date sweetened jam. That's on my website, a recipe for date sweetened jam, which is really good. So right now I'm in a habit of having that as a breakfast or a snack even. So those English muffins are going to be on my grocery list for sure. Now, okay, my household prefers variety. I should say my husband prefers variety. He will eat leftovers maybe on day 2, but he does not want leftovers on day 3. So if you're in a household where you can make a gigantic pot of soup and that lasts you the whole week, then you are blessed. Because my hubby does not like that. He wants, he will eat it all over time, but he does not want it back to back, like all in a row. So my personal strategy is that I pick 5 things every week. I pick an Italian dish, a Mexican dish, an Asian dish, a burger, and a soup or a stew. I've got Indian thrown in there because I do order Indian food from First Seed. I'm sorry, yeah, First Seed Foods. They have delicious, ready to made, comes to your door frozen Indian food, which I don't typically make, but I am willing to order it from them because it is so delicious. And you can even order it SOS free. So check that out. It's First Seed Foods. And if you put SID10, CYD 10 in the coupon code, you'll get $10 off your first order. I like their food so much that I've decided that I want to promote it to some degree because people that don't want to cook would do very well with this. And we'll talk about more options at the end here about where you could look for food if you don't want to cook. Then also for me, one of my dishes has got to be sandwich material, typically, because my hubby travels for work. On the days that he goes to visit his mom, that's an all-day trip for him. So he needs a sandwich on the road, and he's kind of picky about that too. So I have to make either like a tofu loaf so I can make sandwiches, or a lentil loaf. Barbecued lentil loaf is good. That's in my meal plan. Sometimes I'll make ribs so he can have a rib sandwich, or I'll make chickpea salad or mock tuna salad or some type of salad material, sandwich material for him. All right, so once you get that figured out, and it sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't. Once you get the hang of it, it goes really quickly. Take inventory of what you already have on hand. And then, of course, plan your list accordingly. The quantity of ingredients you're going to need, of course, depends on your family size. And if you'll be doubling any recipes to freeze for leftovers, like if you're making a big pot of your favorite chili, I love my pineapple chili, by the way. That's on my website as well. Pineapple chili is delicious. So if I'm making that, sometimes I'll double it so I can put another batch in the freezer. Okay, do you break your grocery list into categories? I sure do to save time, and that's not something you have to do, but that helps me if I know, I put all the produce in one part of my list and all the canned goods and then the frozen stuff. So I separate my list out so I can fly through the store. And by the way, I don't know about you, but I have to typically go to at least two stores, sometimes three, and sometimes even four to get everything that's on my list because you'll learn where things are, who has what, who's carrying what, what stores have what. Like Aldi's, for example, if you have an Aldi's in your area, they have a really good organic pasta sauce that's organic, sugar-free, oil-free, and it's like $2.19 a jar. So I will go to Aldi's to stock up on that when I need it. And I'll also go to Costco for my frozen fruit, gigantic bags of blueberries and cherries and things like that. Okay, so time savers in the kitchen. Pre-cut your veggies for salads. So and we'll get into that in a second about pre-washing all your produce, but those frozen veggies, again, as a side dish for use in a recipe. Wash all your produce when you get home from the store. If that works for you, that's typically what I do so that when I need that pepper or that zucchini, it's already washed and ready to go. I don't have to take time to wash it. Now that doesn't work for things like strawberries that absorb water and then they'll turn, to mush. They'll ripen too quickly. So you have to usually do that with the things that are sturdy. And then again, assemble several salads and make a batch of dressing if needed. So if you're going to batch cook for 3 to 7 days, depending on your schedule, if you're a working person and you do want to spend 4 or 5 hours on the weekend or a weeknight cooking for the entire week so that you're done. That's what I used to do a lot. Now I'm kind of batch cooking for 3 to 4 days. But for many years, I did cook for 7 days at one time. Then every day I was free. I did not have to spend time thinking about it or cooking. So that worked out for me, both physically and mentally. But whatever works for you, I mean, you do have to spend time cooking if you're going to eat a healthy diet. For the most part, there are very easy things we can do, and I'll share with that in a second too. So let's say you made a big batch of brown rice. You could use that in stir fries, in burritos, in stuffed peppers, or rice pudding. What about Yukon Golds? You make a big batch of Yukon Gold potatoes. Well, cheesy broccoli potatoes, one of my favorites. Mashed potatoes with gravy, or you could use those potatoes, top it with a soup or a chili, and yet now you've got a hearty, starch-filled meal there. Sweet potatoes, if you were to, bake or well, I typically bake my sweet potatoes. That's how I recommend you would use them too. But bake a big batch of sweet potatoes. You can either top those with black beans and greens and guacamole, or you can use them as a burger base. There are burgers that use mashed sweet potatoes that are just really good. There's even a sweet potato based mac and cheese, which is awesome. You can make puddings out of sweet potatoes. There's a sweet potato casserole, if it's the holidays and you're going to be making that, you can use it for muffins. You can even add mashed sweet potatoes to a pancake base, if you want to do that. What if you batch cooked a bunch of oats or groats? Sometimes I do groats, sometimes I do steel cut oats. Batch cook that. Then you have that for breakfast every day or as you choose to have it. You can even mix oatmeal with mix cooked oatmeal, I should say, with greens, and make a savory meal. I believe there's a recipe called kale and oats. What's our friends make that all the time. You could pre-cook a batch of pancakes or waffles and put those in the freezer, pop them in the toaster as the week goes on. So these are just some time saver ideas that you might want to consider. What if life gets crazy and you have no time to cook? Well, let me back up too that if you can recruit your family members to help you with that batch cooking day, that is going to go a long way toward your cutting down your time in the kitchen. You could use a food processor for faster chopping too, but if you can recruit members to just chop or do the dishes as you're going along, that would be great. So let's look at some places where you can order things like Rip Esselstyn's burger mixes. So he's got a really good mushroom burger, black bean burger, and I think a curry burger that you just add water to and make four patties and cook them in a skillet or bake them. And those are lifesavers sometimes when you are out of food and you haven't gotten to the store and you need something. Also has pizza crusts that you could pull out and make a pizza real quickly. I have an easy peasy pizza sauce recipe on my website that is like crushed tomatoes and spices in the blender, and that's it. You can make a pizza sauce really quickly. He also has boxed soups and chilies. I just saw a video by Rip Esselstyn that his products are now going to be in Walmart. Not all of them, but I believe a few of his soups and his chilies and soups are going to be in Walmart. And I don't know about the burger mixes, but check that out. So that's just rolling out. So they might not be in all the Walmarts yet. But all of his things are totally compliant. They don't have oils. Some do have sodium though. So if you're SOS free, that's something you'd want to consider. They offer coupons and sales a lot too, but that website is plantstrong.com. If you want to get on their mailing list, you'll probably get the coupons too. Then Flourish Cafe, that's Tim Kaufman at Fat Man Rants. He has some soup mixes that you just add water, and they are very compliant. They do not have added oils. We've tried them all and liked them, and they're very reasonably priced. And it makes a big batch of soup, like 8 cups. That's a good option for a soup when especially in the winter. First Seed Foods, this is the Indian food that I told you about. It's very good. You can get it both with salt or without salt. I think now they are offering where you can order a package of a combination for the people in your household. But even if you ordered all SOS free food, the people in your household could add salt if they wanted to. And there's that coupon code SID10 to get $10 off your first order. And the shipping is free and it comes on dry ice. It comes frozen to your door. Now, I was not really familiar with Indian food. Like, I heard about dal and some other things, but this has opened my eyes to it. And I really, really enjoy it. And so does my hubby. And, he's a little pickier than I am. So here's other ideas too, like Plant Pure starter kits. I have not tried those. Those are kits that you do add things to it from the store. I have not tried those, but that would be a compliant option. I'm sure that's the Campbell's or Plant Pure Nation. Leafside, those are things that you just add water to, like bowls and smoothies and soups. Dr. Greger promotes those. GoLeafside.com. Vegging Out, that's another website that I just discovered for oil-free, low sugar, low sodium. The menu option changes weekly, so it's not like you have a big list to choose from. I think they put a menu out every week, and that's what your options would be. I have not tried them though, so I can't say if they're tasty. Sprinly, they do offer vegan meals, but again, that menu changes. And then I think you might be locked into that. You'd have to check. I'm not sure about oils, though. Many of these places that offer plant-based foods are packed with oils, like Mosaic Foods. I had such high hopes when I saw their website, but every meal I looked at had oil in it, every entree. So I've never tried them. And then there's purplecarrot.com. They have 100% vegan meals, but again, I'm not sure about the oils in there. So if you Google SOS free meal things to explore, meal delivery or vegan meal delivery, there's other options, but I think this is quite enough here to get you started. Let's see, let's just talk about some easy meal ideas too. Like, do you have a potato bag? It's like a red bag that you can order on Amazon. And I like to microwave potatoes in there. It keeps the steam inside the bag so the potato, stays moister. And so with I say you use a Yukon Gold, you put some Yukon Golds in the bag. You could have those potatoes ready in 5 minutes and then top them with some salsa and some greens and some white beans. Frozen sunshine burgers are another option if you have a store nearby that sells healthier options. But again, the Rip Esselstyn burgers are better. Oh, one more thing about the Rip Esselstyn burgers. It calls for 6 to 8 ounces of water to put in that mix. Just do the 6 ounce because otherwise, for me, they get too mushy, I've discovered. Okay, little side note there, backtracking. How about some easy fat-free hummus on a tortilla rolled up with veggies? Make some hummus roll-ups if you're in a hurry. You can make a quick burrito with frozen brown rice, Southwest veggie mix that you bought frozen and are going to heat up, canned pinto beans with some taco or fajita seasoning, then wrap that in a compliant tortilla or just make a bowl. Again, and right below that, you'll see bowls. How about boiling up your favorite pasta and then using that jarred sauce from Aldi's that I mentioned, and then top that with some steamed asparagus or some nutritional yeast and basil, be creative. But then you've got a pasta in basically only the time it takes to boil the pasta. Or a quick bowl with frozen rice or cauliflower. So basically a frozen grain, your veggies, maybe a cubed potato, your seasonings. You can make savory bowls. There's all sorts of things that you can make with bowls, burrito bowls and different things. But in order to do that, you have to have those ingredients kind of in your fridge already. So that's something to think about and consider. There's the Asian bowl, again, with stir-fried veggies, water chestnuts, liquid aminos, or tamari rather, green onions. You could even, if you've got portobello mushrooms on hand, the whole, not the chopped ones, but the whole mushrooms, you could put those in a pan and serve it on a whole grain bun with your favorite mustard. Oh, there's my easy peasy pizza sauce that I talked about. You could whip up a batch of that and just put it on bread, or if you have a crust on hand in the freezer, if you have Rip Esselstyn's crust, you could make a pizza. I've got a video on YouTube about the Pizzazz pizza maker. And so if you don't want to heat the oven up, that Pizzazz pizza maker, I'm not kidding, it really works well. Go to YouTube. My YouTube channel is Sid Notter. And in the cooking demos, you'll see me using the Pizzazz pizza maker. I think you'll be shocked at it. Was surprised that it worked as well as it did because it's open air, right? How can you crisp up a pizza in open air? But it worked. It does work. You could also buy prepackaged soups or chilies and then have a side salad, maybe with a roll or some whole grain bread. Quick pasta salad. If you have any leftover pasta, throw in some veggies, throw in some beans, and maybe a fat-free dressing or a fat-free sour cream, a vegan sour cream that you've made. All right, all of those ideas are in my book as well. The Plan A Diet, that's also on my website or Amazon if you'd like to check that out. It's sometimes, most times, it's cheaper on my website, and I pay for the shipping. So get my book. You'll find the free 21-day meal plan in there. Well, actually, in the book, you'll find a free 7-day meal plan because the 21-day plan was too long. My book was getting too big, and the publisher asked me to trim the meal plan down, so I did. But the free 21-day plan is on my website at sidnotter.com. You'll also find a free webinar there called 3 Food Mistakes Which Lead to Painful Joints, Extra Pounds, and Health Problems the Doctors Aren't Solving. There's also free 10 simple dessert smoothies. There could be your snacks, for the week that we talked about, and just a bunch of other things too, recipes. And so invite you to check that out. Okay, everyone, that is it for today for meal planning tips. I sure hope this gave you a little something to think about, and stay tuned. And I thank you for watching. Take care.